Alright then guys, welcome to this community created SPARKNADO totem Hierophant. I know, it's a mouthful guys, but man, it's a awesome build to play, even in solo self-found. The gameplay will be fairly quick paced, you are always on the move, you're placing totems and enemies are dying around you. This also means that sometimes enemies die behind you. We therefore suggest you use a loot filter that tells you the loot that is dropping. That means some of these loot filters actually tell you blue, blue, green for a 3-link, or chaos when a chaos ore drops. We suggest you get one of those filters because it helps you not to miss out on loot, especially early on. Thanks boys and girls on the Discord. That was a good tip. This, guys, is going to be the starter I'm going to be using for the next league, Lake of Kalandra 3.19, and I've got a very good feeling about this build. It's very important to note before we get going that this is meant to be a starter build. It is not one of those bait builds like 10 million DPS, you can do all content with it. No, this is meant as a bare bones, no investment needed starter build for the next league, guys, that will get you going without any investment requirements at all. Now, how far you want to push this build is up to each and every individual player. I believe it can go quite far, but the point of the build is to just get you started the smoothest way possible. I'm gonna dive right into it with you guys. We've done multiple trees, as you can see on this side. The reason we made multiple trees is pretty simple. Some people want to have their setup as offensive as possible. This is the setup I've been using in my video. To me it felt safe enough, more about that later, but there's a lot of other people that want to have a lot more life scaling in their setup, which is what we see in here. A couple of things to note. Early on we will be taking these 12 points, which is the same for both the defensive and offensive tree, and that will be the case up until 34 points, because up until that point defense really isn't too much of an issue. Once we reach 34 points, we are here, and the first priority we have is getting Ancestral Bond. This will be at level 20, which happens to be at the same time that we get access to the last powerful vendor recipe. More about that in the notes, guys. And the reason we set it up like this is there is a lot of car speed here. You got car speed here, you got car speed here. This affects your totems as well, 22%. Pretty damn good. Got car speed here, a little bit of dexterity that we need to level our peer support. And this is basically a very strong cluster early on. It's hard to ignore how good this is for the value. Next up we have the 50 point tree, which is right here. And for the 50 point tree we are going to rush to Elemental Overload. Pretty damn good, guys. We've got 3 totems up at some point. All of these sparks are hitting a lot of enemies at once. This will pretty much always be active. This is also part of why we scale so much car speed. The next thing we do is we go for Crackling Speed. Combine that with this mastery, the non-critical strikes Lucky, and you've got yourself a heavy potent power increase from these nodes, guys. Very good. The next thing we do is we go for Mental Rapidity. More car speed, but also offers us some extra mana generation rate, which we need with the jump and totem placement combo. 65 points. We have this route. A lot of offense in this again, right? 25% lightning damage. A little bit of extra car speed, a little bit of resistances. Definitely not bad to have. We pass through here. Additional 5% resistances, extra life. And in here we have more damage. 83 points, we take the mastery, shocks can increase damage up to 60%, and we take Breath of Lightning. But we also start moving down here, and we take this. So we have some extra chaos resistance, reduce effect of curses, and corrupted blood cannot be inflicted upon you. This is a very annoying debuff, as you all know. So this is something you could take earlier on if you want to, but for me it's something I definitely wanted to have in solo self-found because I didn't have the ability to smack my flask with a hell of a lot of alterations to get bleed immunity, so this kind of felt good there. Also we take the agility and might nodes. You might need those earlier, but at some point you definitely become a little starved. For the 99 point tree we are going down here. A lot of strength that we pick up, which helps us with Iron Will for some extra damage. We gain some extra life for Constitution, too hard to ignore for 2 nodes. Then we go to Shaper, which has some extra mana regeneration rate. Obviously, Ash, Frost, Storm increases effect of non-damaging ailments, including Shock. Again, guys, pretty damn good. Extra damage, not bad at all. And an Air Potency of Will. Now, this is an interesting kind of wheel because it increases your spark damage basically and your coverage. Right, because it's more active with all the pierces, so the chances of hitting the same enemy multiple times is better. It's like a hidden damage multiplier. But it also helps with your tornado. And of course it helps with your totem placements as well. Next up would be 110 points, and then we go for even more totem cast speed and even more duration, with a little bit of extra resistances, make things easy, and that's pretty much it. We don't use clusters, it is a real solo self-found easy go league starter. Let's dive into the notes more. It was pretty comprehensive as you see, and the reason we did this is we want to make this build accessible for both the newer player and the more experienced player. I definitely advise you guys to read these notes carefully. We have a step-by-step guide in these notes that tells you exactly how to set this up. It's not very complicated, but if you miss a few steps, it might not function properly or might not be as good as it could be. So guys, if you need it, read it. Couple of things to note, this build that we've created as a community has been tested by multiple people. All of the tests have been done solo self-found. Nebula for Life actually cleared Shaper at some point on a 4-link. Pretty damn impressive if you ask me. We did Kitava on a 2-link, a lot of other bosses on a 2-link as well, and Uberlab was complete at level 76 on a 4-link. This starter really does slap ham. Now a couple of things that we do in here is we give you guys a step-by-step guide how to get your gems that you need early on, right, using the mule, etc, etc. We are also telling you guys how to use your handcast or self-cast Spark, because early on we will not be using totems up to level 20, and this kind of explains how you set it up and make sure you have a relatively smooth transition up until that point. We also explain the vendor recipe that I would suggest you guys use. This is pretty easy to do and it adds a significant amount of power to your build. At level 10 we will take Clarity for that much needed mana regeneration rate, but also Leap Slam. From this point, Leap Slam will be the movement skill of choice, guys. It's so nice, jumping around like a kangaroo, hopping down totems while everything around you dies. At level 17 we will also link this Leap Slam to faster attacks for even faster movement. Apart from the recipe, nothing much changes until level 20. Level 20 we will be speccing into Ancestral Bond to go for our double totem. That's also the level that we get access to the last vendor recipe, meaning an additional boost in power that negates the loss that we have from going through totems, right? Totem spitting out a spell is less damage usually than you spitting out a spell. So from this point, we are far less picky at the packs we engage. Early on, you kinda only engage magic packs or bigger packs, that kind of thing, but at this point you just jump and put your totem down and you don't care where the enemies are, they will die in your wake. A few things that you could use as skills, a couple of things that you could put together, and why we are also kind of explaining the coloring of the links that you want to get as well. A couple of changes from Act 3 where we get curses and access to some auras. We are explaining in depth here why Tornado is as good as it is. We are kind of cautioning you guys to be on the lookout for strength-based gear, so think armor, because your resistances will be capped really easy, but physical damage reduction is a issue with this build. Now we don't want to get hit anyway, and we rarely do, but it's always good to have a bit of a backup, so check for some good bases with some good links, preferably strength-based items. So in Act 4 we gain access to a few more gems that we're going to be using, but nothing much changes at all from this point. Once we have level 55 we do the second lab for Ritual of Awakening. At this point, right, when you're level 55, check your vendors often, because you might have a hidden 5 link in there as well. The information in here depicts which we would want to have for colors and why. And for playstyle, again, you cycle through the jump cast correctly, which is basically a 2-button build. You jump and you cast your totems. If you do that, combined with the taunt mastery on your tree, you just don't get hit. This is also why I'm not stamping out too much life in this build, because I just didn't feel it needed it. If you are someone who likes to have a more defensive approach, we made these. It's basically an identical tree, except it omits a little bit of that offense in favor of much more life on the tree. Now, there's a couple of things we kind of want to look out for once we hit early maps and heist. Some of the uniques for you want to have is double color the Brotherhood, convert that lightning to cold, the new Bitter Dream, which is absolutely insane, guys. It'll be a 9-link, an absolute beast early on, and our totems make sure that the pain from casting will be a hell of a lot less than a lot of other builds. A lot of other builds will have trouble using this early on, I'm sure. Reward goes for 1 to 2 chaos early on, but hey guys, that movement speed, projectile damage, projectile speed, hard to underestimate. It's pretty damn good. And obviously, if you have those Call of the Brotherhood's Pandemonius, it will be a pretty damn powerful option as well. But guys, as you've seen in the video, you won't need it. The build carries you just fine as is. For essences, make sure you're looking for Greed, Suffering, and Torment. Greed gives you some extra life for your gear if you hit it on the gear, Suffering for cold damage to spells, and Torment for lightning damage to spells as well. There's a couple of tips that the community has given us. We can scale damage even more with mines, because the output, the damage from mines, does not interact with Ancestral Bond, meaning you could link it to Wave of Conviction for even more damage through lightning exposure. Movement enhancements, some people are using Frostblink with Leap Slam, and we could link curses on hit with Axe Touch. There is a skill missing here, which is Smite. The reason I kinda omitted Smite from the setup is, at some point when you have the defenses set up, it's fine, right? Use Smite, nice extra damage. But I kinda felt that standing still and smiting wasn't the best idea in this rhythm of casting that we are doing. But if you can make it work, obviously that is a lot of extra damage. One other tip, guys, would be get yourself some steel skin early on. Steel skin provides not just a little bit of extra safety, a little bit of extra life, but it breaks bleeding. So if you're moving and you have it on the left click, on your movement click, it'll auto activate off cooldown, and if it happens to be the case that you are bleeding at that moment, bleeding will stop. Now I want to take the time, guys, to thank each and every one of you that have invested in this build, be it through information, testing, helping in PoB, helping with the prototype, giving suggestions, mixing it up. All of you have made this build possible. This is a community created build. It's not my build, guys. It's our build. It's our starter. Everybody has pitched in. To that end, I'm going to make a thank you list. Like I said, I'm thanking each and every one of you that have contributed in a meaningful way in that last part of this video. And guys, if I happen to have forgotten your name, I'm very sorry. I tried to kind of sift through all the data that we had and all the screenshots that we had. So if I forgot your name, I'm very sorry. But I want to thank each and every one of you right now again for all the help that you've given me to create this. And guys, we have one hell of a starter here. I hope everybody has fun in the next league. There's a couple of changes coming. Don't panic, guys. Just wait and see how the market reacts to what's going on here. And guys, like we always say, we'll be fine. I'm going to include this comprehensive PoB with the written guide in here, the notes, inside the video description, so you guys can all kind of tinker with it. And obviously a couple of these things might be subject to change, but from what we've seen, those changes impact us in a positive way, not a negative way, which is also why I felt that I could release the guide. Thank you all for watching, and in just a little under a week, it's on.